Today on Munson Made This, I am making cheap and homemade versions of my favorite, slightly expensive store-bought snacks. Whenever I go to the grocery store, specifically like Whole Foods or Natural Grocers, I always treat myself to a box of Mary's Gone crackers and a tub of Bitchin Sauce. Now, these things are so delicious. Usually when I come home, you know, when you go to the grocery store, you buy a bunch of ingredients and then you're like, what am I gonna eat? So usually when I get home from the grocery store, that's the first thing I attack. And I've been known to eat an entire box and an entire tub of these things in one sitting. Problem is that the box of crackers can be upwards of maybe $5 or $6. That tub of Bitchin Sauce, about $5 or $6 as well. So you end up with like this $12 snack. So anyways, I did some Googling, found some copycat recipes for these crackers and for this sauce, and I'm gonna show you my versions today. These crackers come together really quickly, although they take a little bit of prep time, and the sauce, because it's a little bit calorie dense with the oil and the almonds that are in the original Bitchin Sauce, I'm gonna health it up a little bit, lighten it up a little bit, and make it into a hummus. So let me show you how to do it. These crackers just take a few really simple ingredients. What I have here is a cup of cooked brown rice and a cup of cooked quinoa, and I actually just cooked them together in my rice cooker. I'm gonna be adding these to a food processor. And this is actually cold. I made these the night before. So I think this recipe works a little bit better if you do use it chilled and not hot, fresh out of the pot. To that, I'm adding a tablespoon of nutritional yeast, about a half teaspoon of garlic powder, and a half teaspoon of onion powder. And then last thing I'm gonna add to this initial spin here is going to be about a tablespoon and a half. This is gonna be my salt of Bragg's liquid aminos. So I'll taste it later and see if that is the right amount of salt. All right, so I'm gonna put the lid on, and I'm just going to blend this up until it starts to come together. Obviously, I'm gonna scrape down the sides too, just to make sure that everything gets mixed together. All right, so the quinoa and brown rice are blended up. They're starting to come together. They're able to form a ball if I tried. So at this point, I'm gonna be adding my remaining ingredients. I have chia seeds, flax seeds, and sesame seeds, and I have just about a quarter cup of each of those. Pouring them in, and now my goal here is just to pulse this until it all gets incorporated. All right, so as you can see, everything is incorporated. Things are sticking together nicely. And I'm gonna taste just a little bit to see if the salt is good. Salt level is perfect for me. Again, this is something that's gonna be dipped into a hummus, so you want it to be able to stand on its own so it doesn't take away any of the flavor of the hummus. There are a few more ingredients here than are in the actual Mary's Gone crackers, but I just wanted to flavor this up a little bit. Found this recipe online, played with it a little bit, doctored it up, so I'll have my full recipe posted below. This is pretty much done. I'm gonna be rolling it into parchment paper, and I'll talk about that here in a second. I've played with a few different ways of making this dough into crackers. The best way I've found is to make it into a big log, roll it up in parchment paper. This sushi mat here is completely optional, but that's gonna help me to get a nice tight roll. So what I'm gonna do, actually I'll put that under there in a minute, is just dump all my mixture into this piece of parchment paper. If you wanted to do like a full sheet and cut it up, you could. The only thing is you'll have to probably sandwich it between 2 sheets of parchment paper. It'll just be a little bit more labor intensive. This way you can make it into a roll. It's gonna chill for a moment, maybe an hour or two, and then you can slice it into the cracker shapes really easily. So on this parchment paper, just using my hands, getting it into a nice log as much as I can, trying to keep it even. And you want to make this log into the diameter that you want your cookies, your crackers to be in. So that looks pretty good for me. I'm gonna rinse off my hands just for to clean them up here, and then I will roll. So again, the sushi mat thing is optional. I just think it helps to keep the roll even and consistent as I roll the paper around it. And it allows me to kind of pull it and tighten it. This isn't going as pretty as I had planned, but you can see the point of the sushi mat. And I'm just gonna roll it all the way up, seal off the ends. And then this is gonna go in the fridge for about an hour or 2 hours until it's firmed up and I can easily slice it. All right, so I'm gonna throw this into the fridge. I actually made one earlier that's already set up, so I'm gonna be showing you how to work with this one while that one sets up. This log that we've made, this recipe, will make about the equivalent of 1 box of crackers, which is good for the amount of hummus that you're making. Depending on what size oven you're using, also depends on how many trays you'll need. I think I should be able to get this all in one, but we'll see. And I'm actually gonna be cooking it on this copper mat here. I found these at Bed Bath & Beyond. They also sell them at places like Fry's. It's really nice. It kind of saves you on parchment, allows you to cook things, take them out of the oven really easily. So I'll be putting my crackers on that. So I'm gonna open this roll up and begin to slice. To slice these, you do want to use a serrated knife and saw gently. You also want to make sure to slice these as thin as you possibly can, but let them still stick together. So you're shooting for less than 1/8 of an inch. If they are still too thick, you can flatten them out as you put them onto the baking sheet. As well, if you notice that your knife is getting a little bit sticky, if it's getting rice and quinoa stuck onto it, just use a towel, moist towel, to wipe it off. Now I'm going to just be laying these out on my baking sheet. If you don't have one of these copper things, I would suggest using parchment paper or something non-stick. You will be flipping these halfway through the cooking process, so you want to make sure that they easily release. Mine are a bit thicker than I would normally do them. I'm not sure why, just my knife skills today, I guess, are just giving me slightly thicker crackers, but that's fine. The next step I'm going to show you here, I will be flattening them down just a bit. You want to try to keep them consistent. You don't want the edges to become flatter than the center, just because those will brown up too much, and you'll be left with kind of like a slightly overcooked cracker on the outside that's still soft on the inside, and you definitely want these to dry out all the way through. The last thing I want to do before putting them in the oven, is to just try to flatten them down a little bit more. I'm using the same parchment I had them in the fridge, and I'm just pressing my hands over the top, feeling any that are maybe a little bit thicker than others, and just trying to flatten them down. Not pushing too hard, but I just want to get them a little bit thinner. All right, I'm just going to slide this mat onto my baking rack. This is going to be going into my smart oven. I already have it set on convection for 340 Fahrenheit. If you have a standard oven without convection, I would just do 350. So these are going in. They're gonna go 15 minutes on this side. So mine's set for 30 minutes now, so 15 minutes on this side, and then I'll flip them over at about 12 or so minutes on the other side, and they're done. So while they bake, let's make the hummus. Before I show you how to make this hummus, I want to talk to you about the sauce that it's based on. It's called Bitchin Sauce. I can buy it at Whole Foods and natural grocers, and we were in San Diego a couple of weeks ago, and they sell it at the farmer's market there because I think it's actually made in San Diego, but it is amazing. It's basically kind of an almond-based hummus kind of sauce. It's got almonds and oil and a ton of seasonings, but it's acidic and it's kind of cheesy and it's umami filled and it's so good. And once I open up a package of it, I cannot stop eating it, especially with the Mary's Gone crackers. Both these products I'm obsessed with. They're so good. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy those. You definitely need to go out and try them. But if you can't buy them in your area, or if you tried them and you want to know how to make them on your own, or a healthier version of the Bitchin Sauce, then that's why I am here. So let's start throwing things in the food processor. All right, so to start out, I have a 1.5 cups of cooked chickpeas. Now I made these myself. 1.5 cups is about the equivalent of what you would get out of a can. The benefit of making them yourself is they have a better flavor as well. I removed the skins from these. I watched a video yesterday from Caitlin Schumacher, and she talked about removing the skins for a creamier sauce, so I tried that. I have 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast there, 2 cloves of garlic. In here I have garlic powder, onion powder, chili powder, coriander powder, salt, and a bit of paprika. Oh yeah, and cumin as well. Have the full measurements in the recipe link below. I need the juice of 1 whole lemon. Just gonna squeeze those in here. Now the lemon, it sounds like a lot, 1 whole lemon, but this is what really gives it this high acidity, and it helps to kind of balance out the other strong flavors as well. One thing about this sauce too is it's really good right when you make it, but when you let it sit in the fridge for an hour or 2, it actually gets a lot better. It starts to kind of balance out a bit more. All right, so there's the juice of 1 whole lemon. All right, to that I'm adding 2 tablespoons of tahini. Because there is no oil in this, this is what gives it the creamier consistency and the unctuousness. So you could leave this out if you wanted to make it even more kind of healthy or lower in fat and calories, but I strongly recommend it. Lastly is a tablespoon of liquid aminos. Can you tell that I use a lot of these same things in my recipes? I really like those flavors of tahini and lemon, nutritional yeast, and liquid aminos. Put the lid on, and I'm just going to let this run until it's creamy. Probably have to stop it and scrape down the sides. So it's blending up nicely. It is feeling a bit thick. So I'm going to be adding, I know this looks dirty, it's just the tahini spoon, but I'm just gonna add a couple of tablespoons of water in there to help thin it out a bit. And that's up to you. Just kind of test the density depending on your chickpeas, how much liquid is in them, depending on if you made them fresh or canned. So we'll just start out with 2 tablespoons. All right, so these have been cooking for about 15 minutes, and I'm just going to flip these over. As you can see, they're lightly browned around the outside. And we just want to make sure they get nice and dry all the way through and browned up a little bit more. So they'll go in for probably another 12 minutes or so until you see that they are perfectly browned. Be careful if they get too brown, they'll get a very toasty flavor, which isn't bad, but it's noticeable. So I'm gonna just finish flipping these over, put them back for another 12 or so minutes. All right, so this has been blending for about, I would say, a minute or so. Perfect texture. And you want to taste it at this point for seasoning. See, make sure it has enough salt. Depending on, again, your chickpeas, if you get no salted cans or if you make your own, salt levels are all going to be different, so definitely taste it. All right, I'm just going to let this set aside, wait for my crackers to finish, and then we'll plate it up and snack on it. All right, so the second 15 minutes is up, and I actually let it go the full second 15 minutes because, like I said, for some reason these did come out a little bit thicker than normally. But as you can see, they're nice and golden brown and they're crispy. I'm just going to put them on a drying rack here just to allow them to fully cool, and that way they will be completely crispy. If you try one, test it, it still seems still seems really soft in the center. Don't be afraid to cook it a bit longer. But these ones are pretty good, so I have a feeling that by the time they're completely cooled off, they'll be totally crispy. So. I have made a plate up for myself, a nice serving here, and I am ready to dig in. These crackers are so good, so crispy. And that hummus, it's like the lemon juice and the Bragg's and the nutritional yeast, they all just create this intense flavor that's so good with these crackers here. So definitely give this a try. Like I said, I'm not trying to take away business from these companies, but when you can make these at home, really inexpensive, it's worth a try. The only thing is you do have to prep a little bit ahead of time. You definitely want to make the rice and quinoa maybe the night before. And as well the beans, if you're gonna make them from scratch, you need to be able to soak those for about 12 to 24 hours in advance. But other than that, it comes together super quick. You saw how easily it's done, and it's definitely worth the time and effort to make these yourself. So definitely give it a try. I'm gonna finish these up here in just a moment, but I just wanna thank you guys for tuning in and watching this channel, and hopefully you see the Ben's back behind the camera, so the audio is going to be great and everything's going to be edited well. Also, for those of you that were concerned and voiced some love to my puppy, Tuffy, who was sick last week, he's back home. He was gone for a whole week in the hospital. He had bladder stones, which are removed. Those things were intense. They were pretty large, almost like coral shaped, so the poor guy was dealing with these large stones inside of his bladder, and so so we had to get those taken care of, but he's better now. He's back to his normal self, running around, trailing me in the kitchen. So thank you all for your concern and love in response to that, but he's back. So, all right, well, I'm gonna finish up this plate. Like I said, I usually eat an entire tub of Bitchin Sauce and a box of these crackers, but with this healthy version, I don't really mind devouring all this, so I'm gonna be okay. Anyways, stick around. Next week we'll have another cooking video on Monday, and you have a great week. I will see you then. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give this channel, give this video a thumbs up, and yeah, have a great week.